Hi, I'm Selena for Who is Jesus Today. How are you doing, world? Let's talk a little bit about women's history. But before we go there, I'd like to say a few things. You know, there are some that will encourage you to hold on to your history. And sometimes that may be multi-faceted history. And sometimes within your history, there are contradictions as well. And there's times that you're told to move on from your history. Not to forget, but to move on. It's a new day with new challenges. I agree with both. I agree there is a place for looking back and referring to a history where you're a family and your heritage has actually I can't say really come from, but what you've gone through. And then there's times when you have to say, but I am not just my history. I am an individual created in the image of God, loved by God, uniquely made, and also called and given a purpose. And that, I would say, is true for all of us, whether we choose to acknowledge and to walk into our individual purposes, because we're not going to choose to walk into the will of God. We want to do it our way. But I believe that God has a plan for all of us. And it isn't based on our history, although I would not eliminate that entirely. Because there's times we are called to go back to regions and to be a light of love and the gospel to those regions. So yes, I would say there's a place for recalling and remembering history. But there's certainly a place for moving on and embracing today. Today certainly has enough challenges of its own for all of us than to continue to dwell in the past. And I would like to say now regarding women's history, are we in a place now in 2023, in the 21st century, are we going to write off women's history of all of the struggles and the battles that had to be won, the laws that had to be passed to support the rights of women, all the women? When it comes to being a woman, a lot of our challenges are global. And so are we going to forget what has been done to protect our voices, our minds, our literature? What I found was so strange in women's history is when I realized that there was an author named George Eliot. George Eliot is not a man. George Eliot is a woman. There were other authors of the day, I believe around dealing with it like the 19th century, who had to change their names to men names just so they can be recognized and get their works published. Right. So that was a struggle. Then we come into the era after laws have been passed and women are now granted more equal rights, and we have a voice, and we have books on the shelves with our names and our faces. No hiding behind a man's name, a man's voice. And so the tides of history turns. You have great women like Harriet Tubman who change history. Amelia Earhart. We have these great women that if they did not come on the rise, what would history be even? How would we be living even today in our societies? And I want to take out time to really go around the world, because there are so many women that have changed history. Golda Meir. Are we going to erase all of this? Are we going to erase this and we cannot pass this on to our daughters and granddaughters? Or do we women have to now share our histories and our identities with those who feel that they have a right to walk in our shoes and to live out our roles? It seems too easy when you haven't had to face the pain of childbirth, the pain that women all over the world that we share for decades each month, and it doesn't end, because when that's over, there's a new stage. There's always a new stage for us, and each stage we bravely have to embrace and still continue to be those conduits to care for society, to make a reform, to bring about a reformation. Are we going to forget and erase all of that? Because I am so surprised that this feels like, I would say, for lack of a better term, like the Dark Ages when it comes to the recognition of just women who didn't have a choice. We were just born as women. You don't get to pick and say, well, I don't want to deal with those issues. I don't want to deal with the pain. But just let me enjoy presenting myself the same as you. Can you really relate to the struggles, to the history? I say, to be a woman, your history is multi-layered, multifaceted in of itself. Let's not forget, women of the world, our contributions to humanity, the way God has created and gifted us to not just be the caretakers on the planet, but to be those that transform and reform the planet. Ladies, I have a question. How much of your space are you willing to give up as a woman in the 21st century? What do you want for your daughters? What message do you have for your daughters so that they can also be proud of their history, women's history? please do not keep silent for too long. For maybe there'll come the day when we will wake up and realize as women we no longer have an acknowledged and cherished history. It's been rewritten, and the issues that we have overcome and the struggles, it is as if it never exists. What do you think about that and moving forward? Remember, there's history that we mustn't forget. You can like and subscribe. Shalom.